Now that we know a little bit about what Spring Social is and how we can use it in our application, we're going to actually implement it here in our Running for Brews loyalty application. So I want to add Facebook here in this lesson, and in the next lesson we'll work on Twitter. So the first thing is I want to look at, I'm logged in as an admin into our RFB loyalty app, and I just want to look at the database real quick so we can see kind of a before and after snapshot. So we do have this social user connection table, and if we run that, there's nothing in there now. And if we go ahead and click on user, there's just the default users that are in there: system, anonymous user, admin, and user. So we'll leave that at that. I just wanted to show you that so we can see once we actually come back, get Facebook working, and actually try and log in using Facebook, I want to show you the difference there and what records actually get written to the database. So we're going to jump over here to the website, Spring Social, and again, when we talked about this in the last lesson, this project is broken up into individual projects here, and we have our Spring Social core, then we have things like Spring Social Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So if we go ahead and click on Facebook, down in the right-hand corner here, there's an example guide to registering an application with Facebook. So if we look at that, the first steps that we need to do before we even worry about doing something on our end is we need to go over to Facebook and actually register an application with them. So if we go into apps, we can create a new application, and we're going to say this is the Running for Brews application, and here's my contact email. So let's go ahead and create an app ID. These things are always not very helpful. Hopefully that's right. And we should go ahead and create a new one. All right, so what are we using this for? And in this case, we're just actually using it for a Facebook login, and we're coming from a web. So tell us about your site. Right now, this is just a test, so I'm gonna have localhost 8080, and we'll go ahead and save that. Now you would wanna put your domain in there. So, you know, at some point I'm probably going to set up a local domain like runningforbrews.dev or something like that. But for now, we'll just keep it easy and go ahead and use that. So let's continue. Next, and I don't think I need any of this. And that should be it. So let's go ahead and look at our settings. And we do want to turn, so yeah, yes, that's good. And in a quick start. All right, so yeah, so because we chose login, we have OAuth login for both client and web. So if we go back up to our dashboard here, we have our app ID and our app secret. So at some point you'd want to show that and grab that. So these are the two keys that we're going to need to get started in our application. So get those together, and once you have those, let's go ahead and jump back into the app. I'm going to actually stop this. Let's stop that there. We can keep this loaded. So let's jump in here. So what we want to do is jump into resources and application.yaml. And if we go down here, we're going to see Google, Facebook, and Twitter. Now these are a little bit old. These should actually be app ID and app secret. So if you start typing, you'll see that app ID and app secret. So now I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, save the actual values from my Facebook application, save these in here, and then close this properties file so you just can't see my secret key and password. And then you do the same, and we'll meet back up and continue this. All right, so now my properties have been saved, and we're almost there, but there's actually one more thing we need to do. So we're going to look for a class called Social Service. All right, so there's actually one thing we need to kind of fix here, and this isn't a JHipster thing. This is actually an issue with the Spring Social, the Facebook provider. Basically what it boils down to, and I did this in a simple example without JHipster involved, just to see if I could figure out what was going wrong. And what happened is there is a bunch of fields that you declare that you want to get from Facebook's profile. One of those was the bio, I believe, or no, it was a description or something else that throws an error. And so what we do here is, until the Spring Social project actually fixes it, we're kind of going around that and saying, here's our lists of fields to map, just go ahead and use those. So we're going to use those, and if we save this now, we should be able to make this happen. So let's go ahead and run our application here. So we're running our Spring Boot application. And let me just, I think this was off anyway. Let me just fire that guy up too. Okay, so we're gonna actually come up here and test this now. If we go to account and sign in, I'm gonna try and sign in with Facebook here, and I get a, oops, cannot post sign in Facebook. Actually think I'm gonna have to test this from 8080. So let's go there real quick. Let's try that again. Come up to account, sign in with Facebook. And so remember the process for this that's going to work. It's actually going to redirect us to a page, and it's going to say, all right, Running for Brews is trying to access information like this. And in our case, all we really need is their public profile, which will contain their first name, their last name, the profile picture that we're using, and the email address. So this right here is actually their logo. So what we'll want to do when we come back in is, when we actually set up this profile for real, we can come in and actually change this to use the Facebook for Brews logo, so it's a little bit more customized. But for now, we'll just leave it as is. And we're going to go ahead and continue as Dan. So it's going to take us back to the Running for Brews loyalty, and it's going to bring us in here. Registration and saved. Please check your email. So I think that we're going to have to log in again, and maybe we are already logged in. Let's see here. Okay, so we're having an issue here with our Facebook login, and I think I know what's going on here now. So if you look in the console, there's an exception being thrown, which is the bio field is deprecated in version 2.8 and higher. And this is actually one of the things that we fixed, but it looks like we didn't. So again, we're asking for all of the different fields that we want to be able to map here to a profile, and bio is no longer one of the valid ones. So out of that little kind of hack that we threw into the social service, we forgot to remove the actual bio. So let's go ahead and restart this application. And I think this should work now. All right, so let's try this again. We'll go into account, sign in. Let's sign in with Facebook. And we actually already authorized that we gave permission to Facebook to log in. So it's just going to have us sign in with Facebook. And now we are logged in as user danvega@gmail.com. So the first thing you'll notice up here is there's a picture of me. So that's our profile picture from Facebook. So that worked correctly. And there's our information there. We can kind of we are actually logged in, and if we had any permissions that we were able to do, then we can go ahead and do them. I actually want to log out though. I want to show you this as an admin now. So let's go back in as admin and look at the database again. And so if we go into social user connection, if we go ahead and run that, we'll now see our user ID in there. There's our provider ID. So we came in through Facebook. Here's our provider user ID. And then we have some information like our URL, our image URL, and our access token that we're going to use to authorize with Facebook. So then if we come in here, we also have a user here, so we can run this. There's our user. Here's our user hash. Our image came from Facebook, so there's our profile picture. And then we also have some user authorities. So that's really all there is to it. Again, there can be a couple of complications when setting this up. You got to make sure that you set up the Facebook application correctly. make sure that you have like your authorized URLs. So when you come into the product under Facebook login, make sure you have this valid OAuth redirect URL set up. If not, you'll get an error. That's kind of the first warning to say that you probably don't have this side set up. And again, I had issues going in through 9,000 on my dev box. I think that, I'm not quite sure why that is, but just thinking out loud here, there's probably a good reason for that. So I just came in through the Spring Boot app at 8080. Again, this is not something I'm gonna have to test through the front end that much. So that was fine there. And I think that's it. So we'll leave it at that. That is getting our Facebook login connected. And in the next lesson, we'll work on getting Twitter connected. So let's go ahead and move on.